Okay, um, today I'm going to talk about some of the things that um, I've been impressed with in learning Go, specifically around kind of the development experience and environment, some of the editors and tools and the way that Go manages dependencies. Um, and then I also want to show a couple simple Go examples to kind of complement the example Ryan showed last week. Um, so I'll do kind of more a web-based example at the end. So to get started with Go, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use Brew, Homebrew, to install Go. That's been easiest in my experience. So Brew install Go. Um, I've already downloaded it, so it installed pretty quickly. The next thing you want to do, getting started with Go, is that you want to create a directory for all of your source code and artifacts, build artifacts to live in. So just put a Go directory at my home folder. And you also, the other thing you got to remember is to do some environment variables. So in my bash RC, I went ahead and did the following lines. I did export go path equals home/go. That's in my did that line inside my bash RC, and then further down, I went ahead and put into my path appended go path/bin to my path, and then now in my iTerm bash window, I've got any of the executables that Go creates when I build my code is now available to me right here, right as it builds. So once you have those, I'm gonna use Sublime for text editing. So if you come to Sublime, there is a Sublime Text 3. I've just been using Sublime Text 2, the stable one, since 3's in beta.
Although I haven't had any problems with 3 yet.
I've heard that as well, that 3 hasn't really.
Pretty stable.
And in fact, there's some other advantages to using 3, some enhanced Vim-like plugins rather than the vintage mode. But the vintage mode is pretty decent.
The package control is built in now.
Is it built in? Okay. Well, I'm going to be showing you how to get package control the old way then, before it was built in. So, all right. So it's installed. I can close that. So go ahead. So you've got Sublime out of the box. First thing you're going to want to do, Sublime is a free trial. There's no time limit on it. Kind of an evaluation period. It will nag you and say, hey, how's your evaluation going? You should probably purchase it and pay us money. It's a good editor, not too expensive, but I'm going to stay unregistered for right now. To get package control the old way, you came to this sublime.wbond.net/installation, and under Sublime Text 2, you can grab this little bit of Python code here, and you open up the console of Sublime. I did it using Control backtick, and paste into here. You have all this code. You hit enter. It's done. It says please restart Sublime Text to finish the installation. So I'll do that. Open it back up. Now what I can do in Sublime is using Command-Shift-P, which is the Uber do all commands ability in Sublime. I can say I want to install package, and they come up with a list of all these packages, these plugins for Sublime Text you can do. So the one I want to start with is called Go Sublime, which, among other things like formatting of code and code styling and stuff like that, it also has several commands. Like you can go back into that Uber thing and say Go Sublime, and you can see all of these commands that are kind of specific to Sublime that you can do. So just that. So after you get Go Sublime, I turned on vintage mode if you want to do Vim key bindings. It's pretty easy to do. I'll just show you briefly. When you go into the default settings, at the very bottom is an ignored packages, and that used to say vintage mode in that little array. So I deleted that. And then, whoops, close my editor. And then in my user settings, which you can get to with Command comma in Mac, I also said the ignored packages there, but then I could say that I want vintage start to start in command mode instead of insert mode. And then I found this other thing, if you want it to use the clipboard, which it doesn't by default, turn that on as well. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and actually write some code. So we've got our Go directory. I want to make a folder structure to put my source code in. So you can go ahead and start using your Go path environment variable. You want a source directory, src, and then the folder structure is based kind of on where code is going to be hosted in source control, I guess is the best way to explain it. So it does the kind of, it'll start going into the URL of where it would be in source control. So github.com/mkmurray is my GitHub user account, and so that's where I could put my own repo. So say I want to do just the canonical hello world example. So I'm going to create that directory structure, and I'm going to go ahead and go into it. I need to look at my own screen and not up there. Okay. Whoops. Oh, thank you. Oops. Okay. So from in here, we can go ahead and write a Go file. So let me get Sublime up again. I'm going to save this guy as Murray Go. All right. So here's our first file. So just a very simple example. This is actually probably the same one that Ryan showed last week. So we say package main. Ooh. I must have done a...
No, let's go Sublime. It has a little bug with that.
Okay.
I've ran across that too.
Okay. So we're going to need package main. We're going to need to import a dependency from the standard Go library. So we'll get the format package. And in our func main, we'll do format.printf hello world. And that's it. So when I hit save, you'll see it auto-format my code, since formatting is important in Go. Significant, I should say. So coming back to our terminal, if I were to run go install will build your code, and then it will actually take the build artifacts and move them into a directory structure. Let's actually take a look at that. I don't want to gloss over that. So inside of Go, we have our source code. So GitHub mkmurray hello.go. Up here at the root of Go is bin, and it created an executable called hello. That's your build code, and that's the path that I put into the into my environment variable path variable. Because now that I've installed it, I can actually run the executable hello, and it prints out hello world. So let's improve upon that. Let's go ahead and write some dependent code. Maybe we want to create a library that's reusable by many different Go projects. So let's go to let's make dir and go into it. Okay, let's make a new file, and it's going to be new math. It's going to be a little square root function. Oh, that's kind of nice. Okay, func square root, and when you're given a float 64, it's going to return a float 64. And this is using an algorithm that you'll see on many kind of tutorials or examples of approximating a square root by using a for loop and doing some iterations until you get close to the square root of a number. Standard for loop, and I don't remember the name of this algorithm, but do you remember?
It's from Newton, but I can't
It's like some Newton's algorithm. Yeah, I agree.
What's the dash equals?
So
equals.
yeah, minus equals there is a subtraction and then an assignment back to z. Use the variable and then assign it. Yeah, another bit of syntax that takes a little bit getting used to. Whoops. So another bit of syntax that takes a little bit getting used to is the colon equals operator there. It is a variable declaration and an assignment in one.
Yeah, it's
Is that
shorthand.
Shorthand
Instead
for
of having to say var z and
Yeah.
var z float 64 equals 1.0, just let it infer that.
and it will use inference. Yeah. So other than that, pretty standard language that you've seen before in other programming languages. So with this guy saved, what you can do is we come back to our terminal, and this would probably be better if I had these side by side so you can kind of see the workflow. But if I were to say go build, that just verifies that my code's built, but it doesn't actually produce any artifacts. It doesn't create an executable. It doesn't create a package. For that, you would run go install, and that would create the package. But I'm going to forego that because I'm going to use this package in hello, and you'll actually see it build square root, the new math package for us, because it's a dependency of hello, and we'll see that. So to modify hello to use this, we're going to add in a dependency here, an import. We're going to import github.com/mkmurray/ and it was called new math. And we're going to end our thing there. Then inside of the statement here, we're going to say just say what the square root of 2 is as part of our print line. This is kind of standard printf stuff that you see from C and C++. I think Ruby has a little bit similar syntax. And then we're going to use new math and call the square root function. One thing, just as a reminder, I think Ryan talked about this, but if you want something to be public from a package and used somewhere else, it has to have a capital letter. If it's a lowercase letter, it's intended to be private. That's the convention there. So I think that is ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Go install. So before, and then I'll run hello. Whoops, what did I do wrong?
Build hello.
Oh, I thought that's what install would do.
You're in new math, though.
Oh, thank you. That's the problem. So what I can do is go up hello. I'm sorry, go install. I wanted to show that you don't have to go to the directory to do it. Should have wrote that down in my notes. Okay, so when I do that, now when I run hello, it built Although I ran go install, so it built new math. So I didn't show what I wanted to. But what happened is now you have this package folder, and it even builds packages based on computer architecture. So Windows would be completely different than the Mac. And then it creates this structure here, and it creates these .a files, which are the packages that can be used as artifacts to be part of the executable for Hello. Now, one thing I want to note here is that Go is statically linked. That is different than what we have been a little bit used to. In C#, you create DLLs. DLLs are dynamically linked libraries. Statically linked means that you distribute an executable, and that's it. It is completely self-enclosed. It has everything in it that it needs to run on that computer. There's no DLLs that come along with the executable. There's no .a files that you have to copy along. It literally gets all compiled in together. So there's no well.
Just to demonstrate that, go look at the file size for your Hello executable.
So it's 2 meg. Even though it's a small file, it's 2 meg. But it's completely compiled and ready to go for this system architecture. Actually, I had that question, and I never didn't have time to look it up. But are there ways to say go install or go build and provide the architectures you want it to build against, and then have all those folders populated? I assumed that was the case.
File for Windows.
Okay, yeah. So from this Mac here, okay.
And then you can distribute your executable.
And I can hand it to a Windows user. So that's pretty cool. So yep. So you're not going to have problems like we've seen in C# where, well, I'm looking for a reference against RhinoQ's 3.1 point whatever, and you've given me this. Like that's not a problem with this anymore. When you build it, it's ready to go, and if it runs, it's good to go. So when I get into showing you the command go get, where I'm going and getting dependencies from source control on GitHub, you're always going to be getting the latest every time you build. Does it check? No.
It's when you go get.
It's when you go get. Okay. So when you go get, you get a version, and if you ever go get again, it could get updates, and then so there's versioning that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that is one of the also complaints that people have had, is because like you're developing against a version, and then you go to deploy it on a build server where you recompile, and it gets the latest packages. Now you've gotten
and you're relying on those packages to be using semantic versioning and that kind of
disciplines that aren't going to,
so they're backwards compatible and all that.
Now the Go community, I think, is dedicated to doing semantic versioning and things like principles like that. However, you did mention in your presentation, Ryan, that there is a solution that they are playing around with in your import statements to kind of specify.
Yeah.
I want to be locked on this dependency.
I don't know where they're at on it, because they were kind of saying they want the community to kind of come up with what the solution is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the import statements go in your code, they're just a string.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement they have. And so you could maybe come up with a convention that you say package, version number for your string.
Right.
And then it'll go find the right version when it imports that package.
So they're definitely thinking about that. That as how to solve that problem, leaning on what other communities have done and what direction they want to take it. But
obviously, when you can't.
Mm-hmm. And with Go as fast as it is and how fast it builds, I'm thinking that is not as much of a headache as you may be used to in other communities where, binding redirects on DLLs and stuff.
Well, and I think you could also
test
get a
coverage.
little clever on, because you are depending on GitHub repositories, you could set up like your build server to have a notification hook on your dependencies to just automatically recompile and run your integration tests. As those things change, so that way when you go to deploy, you're not going to have any surprises because you've already run all your tests.
Right.
I think the problem is when people are working disconnected for a while, and then they go to deploy, and it's been a month since they've pulled down changes.
The dependencies are going to have new commits. Yeah. So so that's what's going on here. This is the standard structure, source, package, bin, and that's all based on, basically there's a convention that says, like, generate me an executable versus generate me a package. That convention is that your package is named main, all lowercase, so in hello here, it was named main, and Go saw that and saw the func main, said let's make an executable, whereas square root had a package named new math. That's what generated a .a artifact there to be used by executables. So there's just a convention there, but that statically linked is an important part of one difference from what we're used to. So if you want files to be grouped together in a package, you just use the same name, kind of like a namespace, as the package name. And your package should always be the last element of your import path, so new math there. The rest of it was just directory structure based on that, but your package becomes the last part of your import statement there. Okay, so I want to show you, I prefer to use something like Go Convey. I think its testing is a good idea and superior to the standard testing, but it is pretty lightweight. So I'm just going to show you real briefly how to write a test file against this square root guy. So, whoops, let me save it first and let's create it. Inside of new math, the convention for doing the standard lightweight testing in Go is to underscore test your file. And then this is going to be in the new math package. We're going to import testing from the standard libraries. It expects your test functions to start with the word test as a prefix. And then it needs to take in as a parameter, whoops, I thought that would complete that. Testing dot, it just takes in this testing.t object from the testing library. That allows you to do your assertions and tell the test framework whether it was success or fail. So let's define some ins and outs, what we put in and what we would expect out for our test. And then we're going to pass in the in value of 4, I'm sorry, and then assign that variable to x, which is declared on the spot for the if statement. That's a bit of Go syntax I'll explain here in a second. And then we're going to compare it to Go, or to out. And if it doesn't match, we'll notify the test framework that there's an error.
Just real quick, the square root's available because it's in the same package.
Correct. Yes, good point.
That's also why you don't have to prefix the new math package name. What do you call the function?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Like, notice how testing is not in my package, so I have to do the prepend testing.t, and I had to do that with other functions as well, like I think format and hello.
So putting them in the same package
and new math.squirt there.
is the same as putting them on in the same file. They're used.
Yeah, I kind of think of a package as like a mix between a class and a namespace if you're trying to relate it to C#, because
notice
the privates are available to you if you're within the same package. You can access the lowercase named functions and variables and stuff.
So
But you can also split it across files, and so that's kind of how it's like a namespace. You don't have to put your whole package into one single code file.
Yeah, notice how I'm not declaring a class here. You really just dump your functions and value types right here in the package, and so that's why that you said it's kind of a mix between a namespace and a class. So
I guess more like a module or something.
yeah, right. But okay, so there's a simple test. So again, this syntax here is a syntax that allows you to define a variable that is scoped to the if statement and is out of scope when you're out of the if statement. So I can't refer to x outside of that if statement. But if I had an else statement, I could refer to the x inside of there. So it's kind of a neat way to declare and assign a variable and then do a test against it, all within the scope of that if statement, and then it loses scope outside of that. So I thought that was a bit of cool syntax in Go. So with this test written, let's go ahead and you can just say go test, and it finds my test, runs it in a very short, small amount of time. It says that my tests are okay.
Do you want to try something for me real quick?
Yes. Going off script.
Yeah. Go back to Sublime and do command.9.
Command.9?
Yeah, no, just command 9.
Oh, is it just command 9? Okay. Yeah. So this brings up the 9.0 console. It's like the Go Sublime little console. So you can just type in test here.
Or if you do it,
or you can do Go
can you do watched mode or something? Or?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was showing Go Convey, I was just running Go Convey right there.
That's cool.
So So a lot of these things you don't have to switch back over to your console.
I figured there was probably a way. I kept confusing the command console that accepts Python code, and I was like, oh, is that the only console I have? I didn't realize there was a equivalent of a bash console almost right here. So that's pretty nice. Okay, I like that. So there's our test. So like I said, I really like the workflow that Go Convey gives, which you showed a little bit in yours, Ryan. But that is a simple way to write some tests. So one other thing I want to show you, I am going to do this one from the terminal. So when you want to get some code dependencies that you're not writing yourself, you can use the go get command. And so I'm going to get some code from Google's Mercurial repositories. There's a thing called GoTour. I don't know if you did this, Ryan, when you guys were learning it.
I didn't. I think I just did it on the site, on the website.
Yeah, that might be what it is. Yeah, on the website. So, so there's GoTour, and then because GoGet actually runs Go install, I think that's right. I am able to run. Maybe it doesn't. Am I wrong? Does GoGet not run install?
It said no buildable Go source files. I don't know. Maybe
you know what? It said that to me one time. It shouldn't. I can go into it just to make sure.
Yeah, because it just goes off of your Go path environment variable.
Whoops. Maybe it's not a buildable thing. How did I run this? Oh, it's just, no. Yeah, I can't remember how I did it before. Well, I can solve that real quick here. Oops. I'm going to drag this. It doesn't work very well, does it? Son of a... Okay. Now we can run GoTour because I built it previously. So what that did is it's an executable that has its own little web server in it, and it runs this little website which gives you an introduction to kind of some. If you want to learn more of the language syntax, this little tour of Go is pretty cool. And it starts you off on module 1 here, but you can kind of go back and see all of the modules here. I ran through it and it was pretty helpful. So this little Go tour thing is pretty cool. So I just want to show that. So I used GoGet to get it and somehow installed it last time. I can't remember what I did. Control C, there we go. Okay. So another thing I wanted to show you about that I really thought was cool about Go is its documentation is pretty cool. So I had a question about strings when I was doing some of my Go code, and there was a what function was it? It was the fields function. Okay, so here's a standard documentation for one of the standard library string packages. I had a question about the fields function here, and it gives you the signature and an explanation of it. Then it gives you this example, which is really cool. And the word foo in this original example was not there twice. I did that a week ago. So I literally came in here and like tried stuff and then hit run, and it showed me the results. Like I wanted to know what it would do with duplicates because it wasn't real clear. So all I had to do was just like modify the example and try it, and I thought that was really cool. So you can do that with most of these functions. Not everyone has an example. Whatever contains rune, it doesn't have an example. But any of them that do have examples, it does this little widget here that shows a little code editor and runnable and modifiable too, right there in the documentation. And when I come back to this documentation a month from now, it appears that my edits are still there. So those must be kept around in cookie or local storage or something. But I thought that was pretty cool. Also, there's this Go Playground. Same kind of editor here, but just in kind of a form where you can create a piece of Go code and then share it, try it out. So kind of like a, what's the one for JavaScript? JS Fiddle. JS Fiddle, but for Go codes, which I thought was pretty cool. So anyways, let's go ahead and actually build like a little website. So this is going to be like a Christmas wish list. And we're going to use the web framework called Martini. That's the one I've been looking into. It became very popular. It's very close in inspiration to Sinatra from Ruby, hence the name Martini with Sinatra there. So let me make a dir here. We're going to make under my, let me just go to it, GitHub, mkmurray. We're going to make a dir for Christmas list. All right, and then we're gonna need some dependencies. So we're gonna go get github.com/codegangsta is his name. He actually writes a lot of really cool Go code. He's become a pretty well-known guy in the Go community. But CodeGangsta is his name, and we're going to need Martini. We are also going to need Martini contrib, which it has always told me there's no buildable code, but it works somehow. All right, so let's go ahead and build a an example little website using Martini. So I'm going to put this under Christmas list. Okay, so it needs to be a package main, so it's an executable. We are going to import github.com/codegangsta/Martini. And we need contrib as well.
Can you do command.p and see if it shows up in there?
Wait. Command.p is
it's the import package shortcut from GoSublime.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. So command.p.
Command dot, then command P, I think.
Oh, okay, like it's two separate commands, command dot, command P. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't remember if it includes third-party packages or if it's only the Go packages. It does.
Anything that's in here.
Yeah, so. You've already imported
So it says delete, yeah. Okay, interesting. It doesn't look like the Martini contrib made it in because it wasn't a buildable thing, but we need the render package from inside that contrib project. And so now we're going to make a main function, the entry point, to start up a Martini web server. We'll just use Classic, which comes in with some pre-built routing, what would you call it? Middleware. Yeah, there's some logging and error and routing middleware that kind of has a few conventions out of the box. So we are going to use some extra middleware from the Martini contrib, render.renderer. And then we're going to specify a handler function, a route, if you will, to respond to, whoops, let me do double quotes. Here's our handler function that's going to respond to requests to this route. And it's going to return Merry Christmas. And one last thing you need, just tell it to run the server. Whoops, I put a semicolon. There's my C# coming through. Okay, so no, I'm still evaluating. Okay, so very simple little guy. This will respond to one route. Command 9. We're gonna give this a shot. Oh, look, and it does it in your current directory too. Ooh, I like that. Thanks for showing me that, Ryan. Okay, so we're gonna go install this. Oops, I hit Shift or something. Okay, so that's done. Less than a second. Now what you can do is you can go ahead and run Christmas list.
And you can even just say go run instead of doing go install on Christmas list.
Because of you're already in the folder.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're just messing around with and doing this iteratively, you can just keep saying go run instead of having to keep it reinstalling and invoking executable.
Good idea. So this is running in the background, I guess?
Yeah, see that little spinner down there?
Yeah. Are you able to like kill those processes?
Yeah.
Because it's not telling me the port number. I wanted to show
open up your command window.
the terminal.
No,
Control P.
Yeah.
Or Control Shift P.
Yeah, Control Shift P, and then I think if you type in tasks.
Show cancel pending tasks.
Yeah, that'll show you what tasks are running.
So this is all Go Sublime. This little guy down here. That's awesome. Okay.
So you can see there's
one active task. I'd like to cancel it.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Yes. Signal killed. Oh, and look, now it gave me my output. So that's the bummer part, is it didn't show the normal Martini output of what port it's listening on while the task was running in the background. So if I run it over here, you'll see it's listening on port. So I just go to the browser, localhost 3000, boom. Now I know there's not a lot of code here and not a lot's going on, but I just want to stress the fact that route answered in 107 microseconds. Like not milliseconds, microseconds. When I get a little bit more complicated site, it will still stay under a millisecond per response, which is pretty darn impressive. Anyways, so this is nice. Let's say I want to make a change to the route and change something to say other than Merry Christmas. I'd have to kill the server and Why didn't you die? There we go. I have to kill the server and then change my code, compile it, run it again. Or I can use something from Code Gangster called Gin, which goes along with Martini. GitHub.com/codegangsta Gin. And Martini is a web server that is compatible with Gin. So I can just run Gin from the root here. And it uses an environment variable to know that the web server is hosting on port 3000 so that Gin can run on 3000 and then host Martini on like 3001 or something. So it kind of proxies it. That allows Gin to shut down the server, build, and restart it while you're still hosting the 3000 port. That's how you get the live reload here.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just on save. It's going to watch me change files and go. So actually, I probably, if I want to, yeah, okay, so if I go to, let's go back to Sublime. If I make a change here, Merry Christmas, everyone. Oops. And if I save and then jump over here, does it wait to...
It might not.
Oh, I thought it did every time. If I hit refresh, all I did was save and then hit refresh on the browser. And you'll see the request come through. And see, now it's saying listening on 3001 there, and that's the whole Gin magic there. So yeah, if I every time I save and then go refresh the browser, it's hitting it. Now I wanted to take it a step further. I wasn't happy with that. So I downloaded the Live Reload plugin for Chrome. There's also one for Firefox. And if I turn on the Live Reload plugin, the way it's on is it has a little colored-in dot in the middle now. I also where'd it go? I also installed a Live Reload app on my Mac. What I can do is I can tell it to monitor my Christmas list folder. And then I also came in and said when I change Go files and template files, which you'll see in a second, that I want it to refresh the browser when those files change.
Why do you need the app and the plugin?
If your web server is not already compatible with the Live Reload plugin, then you have to have the app to talk to the plugin. So the Gin was already good to go with changes to Go files, but if I wanted to change like markup files or CSS or JavaScripts or template files, the browser's not, and I'm having to go hit refresh in the browser. So this is one solution. I looked around for a day or so to see what other solutions there were. This one's a decent one, although I'm on an unlimited trial. Please purchase when ready for this tool as well. But it's pretty good. The reload was so fast, and Gin wasn't quite ready with the server yet, that I had to tell it to please wait a second before trying to reload the browser. So it gave Gin time to boot up the server. So I added a second wait. I added some additional file types here and pointed at the Christmas list folder location, turned on the browser plugin, and now if I make a change in Sublime, Merry Christmas, everyone but James, and then hit save, run over to the browser, it actually refreshed the browser, and it redid the server and everything. So now you have an experience where you could put your browser on one monitor, put Sublime in the other, and just code. You know, code Go, code your JavaScript code your HTML. So I like that. I thought that was a pretty good little workflow. Yeah, and then Convey could be on top of that. Like, you have so much live reloading and automatic, just fast feedback. You know, stay in Sublime, don't leave it type of experience. So All right, well, let's actually make a useful Merry Christmas list. This is just responding at the root route here. So in order to do this, we're gonna persist some things to MongoDB, our Christmas list. So on the side here, I've done brew install MongoDB, and then I've actually started the MongoDB server, and that's it. And then over here, I need a driver for MongoDB from Go. There's a decent one called it's called Mango, but it's spelled MGO, and they say pronounced Mango in the documentation. I don't know why they think it's pronounced that way when they spell it differently, but maybe Mango is taken. But MGO. So if I run that will take, this command right here will take about 5 minutes or more. And it's because one thing you have to know is Go Git isn't just tied to Git. So you don't have to host things on GitHub like the GoTour from Google was hosted on Mercurial. This is actually hosted on a source control called Bazaar, B-A-Z-A-A-R. So I had to brew install Bazaar before this would work, and then I thought it didn't work because it hung for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I went and talked to Ryan for 5 minutes. I came back and it had finally finished. So I don't want to wait that long. So I'm going to just copy my previously down, and I don't even know if it's guaranteed to work, but I did get it down once. So I'm just going to copy this from my previous copy, and we're going to put it in our source structure here.
I think it'll work. You might have to build it, but
I may have to build it. You're right. So now that the source is down, I feel comfortable saying go install lab. Am I up enough? All right, here's another way to do it. Go install, go path. I'm not getting any help here. labix.org/v2/mgo. Okay, I'm just going to cd into it then. Dude, what's going on? Oh, that would be the problem. Oh, no, never mind. It's right there. Sorry. Okay, so we built it. So let's go back over to Christmas list. Okay, so now that we've got Mongo running and we've got a driver, so we can come into Christmas list here and we can say...
do your command.p this time.
Ooh, good idea. Yeah, I want to use that. Command.p, and let's do MGO.
There we go.
Boom. I like it. It even likes...
Yeah, it'll sort them for you and manage all that, I guess.
I guess it assumes... I don't know why L is before G, but whatever. There is another one that I want, but I bet it's not going to work because it's from the contrib. Binding. Yeah, it's not going to work, is it? Okay. So we'll just take this guy, find our binding. Okay. So we got those guys. What we want to do now is we're going to use a function that we're going to call db. Let's see. This is going to return this is how you create Martini middleware. And when I say middleware, think of it kind of like behavior nodes in behavior chains. It's some kind of a piece of middleware that you can use in your handler functions they kind of get dependency injected into the parameter list of your handler func. So we'll see that in a minute. So this is going to be a Martini handler. We're going to connect to our MongoDB database. You dial into it, I guess. MongoDB localhost. All right, and if there are no errors, then, or I'm sorry, if an error got returned, then we're going to panic and kill the process and show the error to the terminal. Then what we're going to do is we're going to return a func. So when you return this as a Martini handler, it's going to hand you an object called Martini context. And what that allows you to do is put stuff on the context that then is available to further pieces down the chain. So we're going to open a new session per web request, per route, per hit, per route. We're going to open up a new session with the database. We're going to map onto the Martini context the values that come out of querying the database Christmas. Or I'm sorry, this is not a query. This is a reference to the database named Christmas from MongoDB. It's going to be an object that we can then do queries on. And we're going to map it onto the Martini context so we can use it later in our handlers, if that's making sense. So we're going to do this defer statement that Ryan talked about last time, kind of like a try, catch, find, or a try finally. Make sure that no matter what happens, if things go wrong, make sure that database connection gets closed.
And that we should actually put up above line 30. Usually you put your defer as close to your.
That's a good point.
Your declaration.
That's a good point, because if we err on 30, then yeah. Okay. Whoops. And then we're going to tell the context that we're done and we're ready for the next middleware or handler func in the chain. I think that's what that next does. Okay, so now we've got DB as middleware. One thing we're going to want to do is be able to get stuff out of there. So we're going to write another func that just gets all DB, gets all wish list items from the DB. So this is what that s.db Christmas returns, is a mango.database object. We're going to get a reference to it, and we're going to turn around and return a wish array, or is it a slice? I have.
That's a slice right there.
That's actually a slice. Okay, that's not an array. It's a slice.
If you specify the size in those square brackets,
then it's an array.
That's how you can tell the difference. Because arrays always have a
fixed size. And a slice is just a dynamic.
Yeah, it's a wrapper around an array.
A wrapper around that allows it to grow dynamically. And okay. So we're going to define our wish list slice. IntelliSense. It's being a little too helpful there. And then we're going to query the database for a collection, I think is what that means, named wishes. Think of it kind of like a document database from RavenDB. The name of the document is called wishes. We're going to find with no filtering requirements. So give me all of them, I think. And then on all of them, we want to turn around and turn them into wish list, a slice of wish items, which we'll get to in a second here. And then we're going to return the wish list. So the last piece we need is to declare the type wish, which is going to be a struct. And we're going to use something from the Martini contrib to decorate the items on this struct. So we're going to have a name string, and then we're going to decorate this with some values that tell it how to map these values from form submitted elements on the HTTP post into the struct and into our handler func. So hopefully that'll be clear here in a sec. Description. And this backtick is a literal, is that right?
I can't remember now.
I think this is a literal. I don't know exactly what it means to have a literal after the declaration of a variable.
I think it's called a tag.
That might be some kind of a metadata or a tag or something. Okay. And now we are ready to define some actual routes that use all this code that we've done. So let's do get wishes, and we're going to define a handler func that is going to take in a renderer, just render, render.render, and then we're also going to take in a reference to the database because our middleware allows us to inject that. And now we are going to connect to the wishes database. Whoops, I'm sorry. We've already done that. We're going to render back to the screen HTML with a status of 200. And we're going to go find the list template, which we haven't created yet. And we're going to get all of our wishes from the database. So let me save that, let it format it. Okay, so if we were to go ahead and run Gin, I'm not using that yet. There's an import statement I'm not using, and that's the binding one we're not using yet. We're going to use it on the post. Is that allowed? Just comment it out. Okay. Let's try it again. I didn't have to kill Gin. It would have recovered from that nicely, and it actually would have put out a little line that said, "Hey, we built successfully now." After the build failed. That's why I thought it gave you some output, but it's only when it goes from failure to success. So we're running over here. I guess Live Reload tried to reload at one point when we didn't have the server running. Oops. Wishes. Oh, that's right. I said we had to create that template. So let's do that now. For this, I'm just going to copy and paste it in. So new file. It's going to be under a folder named templates. And that's going to be called list.temple. Template. Okay, so now it's there. And then I'm just going to grab some markup here. And save it. And I didn't have to refresh the browser because there was a change to a template file, which Live Reload was watching. So, so these came from MongoDB. I kind of inserted these in earlier. So what does Ryan Howard want?
Oh, I have no idea. World peace. How about that?
How about a yacht?
Oh, okay, I'll take a yacht.
Okay. Oh, so on the page, I didn't do the post handler yet. So here's your 404. So let's, we'll go back to here. And let's go ahead and write the post real quick. Post. We're going to post to wishes. We're going to take in the func. We're going to take in, actually, let me, should be able to do that with my Vim shortcuts. Okay, we're going to take in, oh, this is done a little bit differently. This particular middleware, you put this binding.form to the wish type, and it will look at the inputs that are posted up, and bind them into a list of wish types, or a single wish item, I should say, a struct from the form elements, and then we will actually be given a wish item, and then we're going to need render, and the database. And the inside of here is going to be opening up a connection to that wishes document or object, whatever you want to call it. What is it? A collection? Yeah. Insert the wish into there. And I saw some examples where people then were going render HTML 200 list, like that. But this suffers from the whole post redirect problem, where if you hit refresh on the page, it says you want to resubmit the form data. So the better way to do this, which I looked up, is to say redirect to wishes. By the way, the little Go Sublime plugin does some really cool things with that whole r.html/. Oh, it's not doing it right now. Earlier, it was recognizing the syntax, the parameters that were needed, and letting me, like, it would show that it needed 3 parameters, and then would let me type them in and tab to the next one and like fill them in, kind of like how ReSharper does that for C#, you know. Anyways, it was doing that earlier, and it's not doing it right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've seen that it works off and on.
Off and on, maybe.
But you can go to definition or view documentation with a couple of those Sublime commands too, but it seems like they work some of the time and sometimes they don't.
Okay, so I went ahead and saved, so the server would have reloaded. This page reloaded and lost my form data. So we're going to say yacht and world peace. So it submits, it redirected back. If I hit refresh, I'm not getting the post redirect problem. It actually refreshes the page. That's kind of weird. Why is it still going? Anyways, look at some of these requests though. 700 microseconds. I mean, it's still not even at a millisecond yet, and it rendered HTML and all that stuff. It's pretty impressive. Anyways, so I think that is everything I wanted to show about Martini and connected to a MongoDB. I mean, look at the code. We have the useless Merry Christmas one, but it really is like 50 lines of code for that whole thing to connect to Mongo and all that. It's fast. The development experience is pretty nice with Sublime. There is some criticisms to Martini. Martini is one of the first real successful web frameworks in Go, though people are now in retrospect kind of saying it doesn't hold to some of the Go idioms of simplicity and being very explicit with your types, letting the type system do its thing, and not just being all dynamic and magic-y. So that's been some of the criticisms. Also, the speed of it is a little bit slow at times because it does a lot of reflection every time you call it. Even though it's returning in 500 microseconds, it will take hits in benchmark tests. It is one of the slower options, but it's popular because of its API, which is kind of nice. It's a pluggable middleware API. It's simplistic in that way. So somebody wrote a blog post this last week about it, saying, here's why I don't think anybody should be using Martini for these reasons. The author of Martini, Code Gangsta, responded and said, you know what, you're right. I actually do agree with some of these criticisms. I was new to Go when I wrote it, and I wanted something that worked like Sinatra, and I agree. Some of these things could be improved. So he actually took the code base of Martini and kind of rewrote it, but with the same API, and called it Negroni, Negroni. And he tried to address some of those concerns and criticisms, and he's just barely this last week launched a revamp of Martini that people are kind of looking at and stuff. So keeps the same API, but it does some of the other things. I think it still does some of the reflection, though, the Negroni does. But he at least adhered to more of the Go idioms, and I think that satisfied some people. I know that Corey's been looking a lot at Martini and has some ideas of how some of the improvements could be made to it, to kind of improve the speed, yet still gain some of that reflection goodness, but and keep this API. So I know Corey's been kind of
He's also
talking about that.
a lot at Revel too, so you might be seeing a Revel presentation.
Revel is another web framework out there that's kind of getting some traction. Anyways, the support for this stuff is kind of blossoming. I know that there's an Angular Go Martini generator for Yeoman. if you want to marry Angular and Martini together. And I was looking at that GitHub repo, so that's an interesting development. I think that's about it. I mean, you guys have any questions about how this works or what it looks like?
That was it. That was a great introduction to it, actually.
Yeah.
From like ground on it. That was good.
Good. Well, thanks.